Her past life self was Queen Elizabeth in 1500s England.
Welcome to Soul Guide with Vondie Lozano, a show about past lives, life between lives, and this life.
Hey everybody, it's Vondie here, and I'm really happy to be here with you today. We have a really special guest, but she's actually not in studio today. It's my dear friend Angie Palacios, who we'll be happy to tell you about in a minute and about her amazing past life story. But she is working today, so we met earlier this week, and she shared her story with me to share with you. So I think we're going to add that to the stream now. And then I will still be here with you live so I can answer your questions as we watch the video together. All right, here we go. All right, so I'm really excited to have you here with us today, Angie. So can you start by telling us a little bit about yourself, like where you grew up and where you're from?
I grew up in Sanger, California, which is a very small farming town near Fresno, California. I lived there until I was like 21, and then I met my husband, and I have moved from Los Angeles to back to the Central Valley, and now in Ventura.
Okay. And speaking of husband, tell me about your beautiful little family.
So I've been married and with my husband for 20 years now, and my kids are not little. They're grown. I have a teenage son and my daughter who's going off to college in a week.
Oh my
So
God.
yes, I
Okay.
know.
Wow. 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 Okay. And a little bit about what you do for a living.
So well, I met you by doing your nails. I'm a manicurist, and now I am a nail instructor. So I'm helping other women and men. I actually have a gentleman in my class right now get their license for the state of California to become a nail technician.
Wow. And I know some of your career stuff shifted a little after your session, but we'll get to that at the end,
Yes.
hopefully sometime. So give me a few minute warning because I know you have to leave after a half hour.
Yeah.
So if I'm starting to go on a little too much, just
Okay.
And then my last question is, what drew you to this, to even having a past life session other than that I kind of talked you into it?
Um, I think it just called to me because of my upbringing and this situation, like with my dad. I just found it very interesting. I know
Her
when we
dad
talked and you
passed.
told me about the other people's sessions that you had done before, it just kept being so intriguing to me. So when you gave me the opportunity to do it, I was like, yes, let's do it. I really want to. I want to. First of all, I was like, let's see if I can be hypnotized because I didn't know if I could be. Go in, and then just the experience was unforgettable. Definitely unforgettable.
Thank you. And you were my first Zoom person.
Yes. Yes.
Which is great. Okay. Well, I'm excited, especially since we have limited time. Let me jump right in to share a little bit about your session. And so I do tell people that you were a queen and your name was Elizabeth in the 1500s. But as you know, I had to kind of pull that out of you because modest, advanced souls don't
Yes.
like to share and toot their own horn. But tell me what you remember about the scene when you emerged in the session.
The first thing that I remember clearly was being in a room with the fireplace and kind of being over the fireplace and feeling like there was this big decision um, about me being married or getting married to someone, and I wasn't thrilled about it at all. Um, I knew that it was my duty. I knew that it was something that I had to do for my family, but I was not happy about it at all. So I was very torn, I guess you would say.
And it's interesting. I love doing these interviews because I find out more that I didn't get in the actual session. So I knew you were cautious and you were nervous about something, but I didn't realize it was related to getting married, which was what came a little bit later in the session.
Yes.
All
Yes.
right. And do you remember how old you were?
I remember feeling like I was like at 15.
Yeah, 15. And I remember asking, is it warm or cold where you are? And you said, well, I'm warm. There's a fire, which
Yes.
led me to believe it might have been cold out, but you were warm.
Yes. Yes. Because I remember like like the fire was, it was a fireplace and I was like kind of over it, just feeling the heat of the fire.
Mhm. And to me, that's just one of many clues now, looking back, having listened to your interview this week, not just, I didn't know this in the moment, is there was all these clues telling me you were a privileged person, but I wasn't catching them until a little bit later. So I remember you were 15, you were in a nightgown, you were in a
Hmm.
bedroom upstairs. And then I
Bedroom.
asked you, what do you do during the day? You said, I run around. Do you remember that with other kids?
Yeah. I remember it was like either like the village kids. I just remember they were kids and we would run around through our village or our castle, I should say. And, I remember I didn't want to be different from them or make them feel like they had to be afraid of me. So I
Mhm.
tried really hard to play with them and have fun with them because I had the feeling like most of the kids that I was with were a little younger than me. They weren't my age.
Mhm.
So we would just like run around and have fun and play games.
Okay, great. Yeah, no, I'm learning a lot.
Hmm.
And then I asked you about the place where you live, and I think you said Kingdom Castle. And again, I'm still not knowing if you're like a staff person or, you know,
Yeah.
yeah. And then you said, I said, where's your bedroom? And you said, up a staircase, and then there were pictures. Tell me about the pictures.
The pictures were like of past family members. I almost feel like people that had passed or um, they were royalty. I knew that much. So
Right.
even when you asked me about the pictures, I didn't really want to say. I remember thinking, this is really crazy. And, I remember seeing the kings and queens of previous just all dressed. And
And so I'm just going to pause for a second and say, oh, and hello, we have people chiming in. So I don't know if I'm saying it right. Enos and David, always good to have you guys. Great to see you again, David. So she's obviously seeing these clues that are royal, the pictures. Now I realize, like Downton Abbey, big, gigantic portraits of people on the walls, but she didn't tell me that. She just said there's family pictures. So I'm picturing like little family pictures. And then now she's saying she saw them in royal garb, but at the time she didn't actually share that. So sometimes what's happening is people are having so much information come at them that they're giving just little snippets out loud. Plus, they're so immersed in the experience. It's hard for them to pull themselves out. I think I've mentioned that before to communicate to me. So clearly, she's kind of like digesting and processing that this is a royal life, and I'm still not getting it.
I think I was having a little bit of like, am I really who I think I am? Kind of going through the motion and looking at him. And I remember when you asked me about the staircase, I felt like I was walking up, but and kind of feeling along the pictures, like almost like, is this real? Like, is this what I'm really seeing?
Yeah.
That was
And so
kind of cool.
you're seeing royal pictures. What you tell me is there's some pictures of family members on the wall. So again, I'm still not getting it. And then I ask you to go to a meal. And what are you eating? And you say some turkey, and I forgot what you're drinking, wine. And I say, what holds the wine? This is a really specific question, so I don't know if you remember. Do you remember?
Yes. And I was like, a chalice, or you're the one who told me.
Priest uses. You said like a priest uses. And that's when I start realizing, okay. I said like a goblet or a chalice, and you said yes. And then I said, well, so you have like turkey on your plate? And you said, well, kind of like Thanksgiving. So then
Yes.
I'm realizing there's a big bird.
Yes, it was like the way I saw it was the food was in the middle. It was kind of like the main course was this, I don't, it looked like a turkey to me, but I'm not exactly sure what it was, but it was like in the center and then there was like fruits and stuff all around it, but it was like a just a bunch of food in front of us is
Yeah,
what I saw.
yes. And your father was there. And who would your father have been?
My father was the king.
Yeah, I don't think. Okay, so I'm just going to jump in again. So this is 1500s England, a gigantic meal, a goblet. Also, we didn't mention when I asked about the bedroom, I think it was a four-poster bed. There's a fire in the room. So all these signs that it's a wealthy royal life, But again, as you'll see, I don't really clue in until later on. And she's very modest, so she's not kind of tooting her own horn. You shared that. You just said my father and two boys. One
Yes.
that might be your brother. So again, I'm just kind of asking the story, still not sure what we're doing. And then I said, "Oh, how do you bathe?" And do you remember any of that? So I had no idea her father was
I
a king.
remember I was in, I mean, to me, it would be like a tub, and it was full of water, and it was like perfumey, almost like a milky white, I guess you would say. And I remember thinking, who brings me the water? Like that.
And you said, I have help. Help.
Yeah.
Now we start kind of, oh, and with the meal, who prepared this meal? I think we have staff.
Yes.
But
I
then
remember.
I'm starting to get the picture a little bit.
Yeah, because I remember clearly when you talked about bathing. I was like, I thought before you even said it, I thought, who brings me the water? Like, where does this come from? And I'm kind of like looking around and I see like people walking in and out just bringing stuff. And I was like, oh, okay. Okay. So I knew we had staff. I knew there was, I felt like.
Okay, and I'm going to jump in again. And I'm going to jump in throughout just to kind of add a little bit of extra color, extra flavor for you guys. Is that when we did her session, she's not telling me there's a whole bunch of people traipsing in and out of the room to help her. She's royal. She just says, I have help. Or I didn't know it was milky white and perfumey. So she's, I think, still processing that she's that important. And to me, it's just amazing that this person who is a manicurist, and you'll find out later on, she specializes in seniors. So seniors who have issues with their feet, that's her passion and her love. And here she is in her former life, Queen Elizabeth.
Like I was of some importance of that time. But I still was kind of very like taken back by who I thought I was actually.
Oh, and I think I did say, what is your name? What do they call you?
And I said Elizabeth.
Elizabeth, exactly. And what is the year?
Like it was like 1500s.
1500s. Exactly.
1500s.
Oh,
Yeah.
and that reminds me. And I looked it up, and I know you did a little bit. So, do you want to say a little bit about what you researched, and then I'm going to play our video.
So after I got off with you, I remember that I felt like, well, I guess we'll talk about it soon, but I felt like I was not exactly with my mom or my father or my mother at all times. I was kind of like a child, but I was kind of on my own in a sense. I don't know if that makes sense. And I started, when I researched, I found out that Elizabeth's mother was deceased. She was beheaded by her father for treason and adultery. So she had a stepmother, but she kind of took to her, but not exactly. So I guess that's why I felt like, oh, okay. And I know when you asked me who was around me at the dinner table or at the table, I said, I feel like I have a brother. Well, it turns out that half brother was the person that she hung out with the most. So that's why I felt like a closeness to him. The other one, I wasn't sure. And I still am not sure, but I know him in particular. I knew he was my brother and that we hung out together. So that was very interesting. I looked up about the war. So apparently it was against Spain. That was the biggest. It was. So later on in the session, you'll hear her talking about that. We always ask, was there a turning point, a major event in the life? And it was when she was trying to decide if she was going to send her men to war or not. So that's what she's talking about here. It was a religious war. So it impacted her tremendously because as I read more about her, her people did really love her and respect her. And so she never took anything lightly, especially when it came to the war. She actually tried to veer away from the war for a very, very long time. And she did it by sending money at first, and that's it. And then they asked her for, to send men. And it took her a very long time to decide if she was going to do that because she knew sending those men would leave a lot of families or a lot of wives without their husbands, or a lot of children without their fathers. And it was just, I felt so heavy. Like that was a very heavy situation that she went through.
So let me jump in because you've covered a whole bunch of things we're going to talk about in your session.
Sorry.
No, that's great. But I just wanted to show people the video that you gave me, and we can watch it together. It's just a little bit, well, actually, it's some pictures you found
Yes.
that felt, and I want to see your reaction because I remember you telling me afterwards, like, oh my gosh. So and it's a little bit of the audio from your session with the pictures. Okay, here we go.
I was headed this way.
Okay, wait. Let me start it.
I feel like.
All right. So I'm really excited to have you here with us today, Angie. So can you start by telling us a little bit about yourself, like where you grew up and where you're from?
I took to her, but not exactly so.
A little bit of the audio from your session with the pictures. Okay, here we go.
I was headed this way.
Okay, wait. Let me start it.
I feel like. Like I'm on a balcony.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
that was
happening on the balcony.
Exact crown I remember seeing.
Are you serious?
Yes.
I don't know if it's a parade or like a victory. I just know I'm out on the balcony and I'm waving to everybody, and people are cheering.
Who is the everybody that you're waving to?
Like our kingdom.
Mm-hmm. Yours and the prince's?
Yeah.
This is before I realized. Are you still a princess or has something changed?
I feel like I'm like a queen now.
Mm-hmm.
When I told you that, that's when I saw the crown.
King? Hold on. Go ahead.
So when I told you, I feel like I'm the queen. At that point, what I was seeing was that crown specifically coming towards my head and me leaning over and then placing it over me. Wow. And then I remember turning around, and then that's when I could really see, like, yes, that's who I am. Like I was Queen Elizabeth, which was
holy cow,
a crazy, like, it was just like my own wow, like moment kind of thing.
So were you being coronated on the balcony? That's when the people are waving and everything, or you just had a flash of that while you're on the balcony?
I just had a flash of that. Like it was just like I was already at that point. I was already had the crown on, but I do remember when we were talking about, like, I remember them coming towards me and putting it on my head.
And I'm still thinking you've married, which we'll talk about in a minute, you know, the prince. I'm still thinking you've married into royalty. And then I ask you, are you alone on the balcony? And that's when I figure it out. So here we go. You see a crown?
I see a crown.
I got all excited with the crown. And is the prince with you, or is anyone with you? Waving, or you're on the balcony by yourself?
I'm by myself.
Okay. And how does it feel to be there on the balcony waving to your kingdom?
Amazing.
Amazing. Wonderful. So just enjoy that amazing feeling for a moment.
I'm in bed.
Does this come as a surprise to you, or were you headed this way? This is your last day.
I was headed this way.
So
how old are you on this last day? No, I can stop it. Go ahead, Angie.
So I found, as I was reading more about, like, the last day of her, it said that she had been sick for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So and that was kind of like the feeling that I had, like I was progressively getting worse. So I knew my end was near. And because so the gentleman that's like handing his hand to me,
Mm-hmm.
that isn't my son, but I thought, or he felt like my son, and it came to find out that he was actually the son of Queen Mary of Scots.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess there was a rivalry between her and I because we were cousins. But when she was killed, or she was beheaded for betraying me or treason, I basically took him under as my own son. So that's why he ended up being who took over after I passed.
Okay.
And that was like something that I remember I decided that on my deathbed. Like I was having my people get to him to tell him like he was going to be next.
And you remember that?
I remember that because I remember feeling like I was so happy that he was there so that he could take over when I guess that's what made my passing so peaceful, because I had accomplished what I wanted to and I was passing on my crown to who I wanted it to go to.
Okay. Great.
I feel like I was in my 80s.
Is anyone with you in your final moments?
Yeah. I feel like there's grandkids.
Okay. Anyone besides grandchildren?
And I feel like there's like friends and family.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people.
Yeah. Like I feel like I'm lying in bed, but I'm surrounded.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So how is it just to see the pictures and talk about it again? And let me make a
It takes me back to the same feelings that I had. I guess, for someone to do this and see like your past life, like the last day and stuff, some people will say, oh, I don't know, I'm afraid to die. Oh, but her death was just so peaceful, and it felt like she was 100% ready. Like like I had put everything in place and it was perfect, and it was like, okay, that's it, we're ready to go. So it gave me a different feeling or perception about the end of life.
Definitely. Yeah.
Like there's nothing to fear if your soul is at ease.
Mm-hmm.
It's so peaceful, which was kind of amazing. It was really amazing.
Okay, great. Okay, so I'm going to go back through the session a little bit. And I apologize for the technical difficulties. My assistant wasn't able to be on when we did the pre-recording, so it was me, and so doing my best there. But I just wanted to say that's a really common thing for people that have the sessions, is it takes away the fear of death because they cross over, and if anything, they feel relieved, they feel comforted, like Angie felt good about this life. And sometimes people, even if they have regrets, then they're even more happy to cross over because they're just like kind of glad that it's over. And I also want to say a little bit of a word about the video, which is usually we're looking for pictures to put with the audio of the session. And in Jonathan's episode, which was way back around like the fifth or sixth episode, he actually found pictures of Castle Otway, which matched the name of the place he was given in his session. And so we found some pictures of the castle and then some pictures that resembled the woman who he felt like he was at that time. Hi, Teresa. I know it's really exciting. Thank you. I'm glad you're here. I see people chiming in. In Angie's, and hers was even before Jonathan. We did hers at the very beginning of COVID. She actually went and looked afterwards for some of the things that came up in her session. And she actually found pictures of herself that looked familiar, not just of a castle. She found pictures of herself, the crown that she recognized. You'll see in a minute, the horse that she loved, um, the last scene. So she actually saw pictures, and a lot of these are paintings still, but she recognized herself and the surroundings. Jonathan recognized the surroundings, but she actually recognized herself in the pictures. So it's rare that we're historical figures. Most of us were just regular people, but even historical figures reincarnate. And like I mentioned before, to me, I just think it's so beautiful that someone who had such a powerful life in this life chose such a humble life. And Angie is just a dear, 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 sweet woman. So anyway, let me keep going. Before we got to this part, the coronation and the balcony and everything, we went to your childhood, and I remember hearing that the parents weren't really around, but someone was around, and who was around?
My horse, Ed.
And you actually sent me a picture of your horse, Ed, but I wasn't sure if it was one of those copyright free runs, so I didn't include it. But tell me what you remember about Ed and even the picture that you found.
So I remember him being just the most, he was my heart. He was not a person. He was just,
When I say who's the most important person in your life, do you remember?
I said him. Yeah, I said it.
Later on in the session, you went to Ed. Yes.
He was, I think I talk about him like he's an actual person, because he felt like he was just my happy, my everything. It felt like anything that would be bad or go wrong, I would go to my horse, and it was like nothing ever happened. It made me so happy to be around him. And I actually read about how she did.
I was going to ask, did you see anything about a horse for her?
Yeah. And one of her suitors was actually I believe like a horse trainer or something. But it made sense because they said that was the only potential suitor that she ever thought about actually marrying. And it made sense because they had a common love for like horses, and she loved her horse with like everything inside of her. She loved that horse. And I just remember when you asked me like, who are you with? I started to laugh and giggle. It felt like I had been ages since I seen the horse, and the horse was just loving on me, licking my face. And I just remember feeling so good. And I think at one point I woke up, or like something happened that I
lost the internet, which it's the only time it's ever happened. But it did in my first Zoom. Yes.
Yeah,
lost the internet. Yes, temporarily.
And I remember you I said it lost connection, then you put me back, but I was in such a hurry to get back. I felt like I needed to hurry up and get back to where I was at, because it was just, it felt like home. It was so comforting to my soul.
Okay, and I'm just going to jump in and say that's the most common thing we hear in all the sessions is that feels like home. The other side feels like home. Like a home, one person said, it's more like home than anything I've ever known on earth.
Soul. It was very comforting to my soul. And I don't know, I thought it was very funny because I remember you saying, what's his name? And I was like, Ed, like this odd name for a horse was Ed.
I know. Well, and I don't want you to give away the surprise ending, but we'll come back to Ed in a little bit.
Yes.
So then the next thing we go to was a significant moment, and this was when you were getting married to a prince?
So I was reading upon her because she was never married and she never had children of her own. But there was a point in her life where her sister she had the crown, and her sister wanted to get rid of her fast. So she was trying to marry her off. And that was where I guess I was not thrilled. I knew that I would have to, but somehow I figured out a way not to.
Oh,
So, yeah, they said everything that I kept reading about her said that she was very good about maneuvering herself out of a situation she didn't want to be in, especially when it came to marriage.
okay. Okay. And I think I heard your timer go off, so I'm going to speed up a little bit here.
Yeah, that's fine. We still have, I said it for an extra 10 minutes just in case. So,
Right. So then just as an aside, Angie's at her classroom where she's getting ready to teach students coming back in the place where she teaches people how to become manicurists. So this is on her lunch break. Our proud moment was when you were standing on the balcony. And this is, like I said, when I started to realize, okay, you're not just somebody who's marrying into a royal family. This is when I finally realized, I think you're a queen. I think you're Queen Elizabeth. So how was it for you? I mean, you were kind of knowing this all along, but how was it for you when you said, I have a crown?
um,
I'm a queen. I remember you saying, I'm a queen.
I'm a queen. I think it was a little shocked at first. And like I told you, I wasn't sure if what I was seeing was, or what I was feeling was 100% real. Like I thought, am I crazy or something? I don't know. And then what was kind of cool was the moment that I had interactions with Ed, it solidified that that is exactly who I was. I was
About the horse that solidified that you were Queen Elizabeth.
Yes, he was what I was like, this is who I was. And I remember when they actually put the crown on me and stuff, there was just this uh I feel like this happiness because I was finally going to get to do what I knew the people needed in our village. Like I had saw so much wrongdoing before, that was my opportunity to really bring peace to the people in my village, and that's what I wanted to do. Because upon reading more about her, like her father wasn't always the nicest man, and I guess her sister wasn't always the greatest either. So it was just her time to show people that you could have differences but you could come together. And it seemed to be that that was her whole reign, was bringing her people back together.
Okay. Well, and your care for her was evident when we go to a turning point or a big decision, and that's when you were trying to decide, should I send my men to war or not?
Yeah, and I remember thinking, I want to make sure that I'm not messed with by other countries, because I was already pretty vulnerable in the fact that I was a woman and I was my kingdom. But I also was very conscientious about hurting my people as well. And I knew that that could hurt my people. But I also knew that the men around me, or the men that I was sending to war, were willing to fight for me and die for me. So I think that's what kind of solidified my decision to actually finally send them. But it was a tough, it was a heavy heart that I did it with.
And you
Definitely.
said that you looked it up and it was an actual war. So what was it like for you, first of all, to have an experience of being Queen Elizabeth, and then second of all, to go look it up and have it fit with the things that you saw? I remember you telling me, I saw this picture and I recognized the horse, or I recognized the crown, or
Yeah, it was, I guess it was just more after we got off and we went through the whole session. I kind of sat back for a while and it was like, that's amazing. Like that's an amazing um past life to have. Because I get, I guess a lot of it was, you, as now in this life, you're like, man, I wish I could be royalty, or I wish, people would take care of me, or I wish, and it gave me a whole other perspective of how tough it actually was for her. She she found peace in a horse, because I don't think she quite trusted people. She was very aware that they were out to get her, and to make her look bad. So her peace and her happiness came in her horse, And then I kind of, like, everything that I read, I thought, wow, that kind of seemed lonely, very lonely.
Did you feel lonely in this in the life?
I feel guarded. I felt very guarded. Super guarded. Just wasn't sure. Like, when you asked me about, like, my dad, I feel like there was even a guard with him. I almost knew, like, I loved him because he was my father, but I was very somewhat distant from him. I think the closest that I felt to anybody that I mentioned was my brother. That was the only relationship I felt like at ease with. But everybody else around me, when we would talk, I felt guarded and serious, like I had to be.
Okay.
Not exactly like I wanted to be, but I had to be.
Right. Okay. So I want to get to the part where you cross over okay. So before we cross over, I just want to mention after the session, Angie and I talked a little bit and she said that, like, she'd be standing in the grocery store. This was her response to discovering who she was. She says she'd be standing in the grocery store just staring and her husband be like, what is going on? What's the matter with you? She'd just be standing in the aisle. And she said, I was a queen. I was a queen. So for like weeks after, I was a queen. And so I just wanted to share that with you. Meet your spirit guide. And I forgot, because I was just so focused on Queen Elizabeth, I forgot until I listened to it this week. And what happens when you cross over to meet your spirit guide?
So I remember you telling me to cross over, and I was going to meet the person that I needed to talk to, who was my spirit guide, like you said. And for some reason in my head, it kept popping in about Ed, and I kept expecting to see the horse. That's what I expected. I was like, Ed is gonna be here, and you asked me to walk through like a garden, I believe. And in this garden that I saw was like a bench, and the person that was sitting on the bench was my dad. And
how was that for you?
I remember feeling shocked at the fact that he said he was Ed.
Right. He was your horse.
He was my horse.
Your dad is passed on.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
it was a really emotional moment.
It was. I just remember embracing him, and it felt so good because I hadn't embraced him, and my dad has been passed now for 20 years. Mm-hmm. And I just, when he said that he was Ed, it made more sense to me why he was my favorite. Like, I felt like I couldn't live without my horse, and my dad was my everything, and I felt like I couldn't live without him either, but I have been, Yeah. So it was just, it wasn't that I was sad. I think I was just shocked, and I was super thrilled to be able to see him again.
Yeah, you bet.
That was like my biggest thing.
Yeah, exactly. And every once in a while, instead of a spirit guide, a loved one shows up. And and they might be your spirit guide, but more likely it's just a loved one who kind of says, this is my opportunity. You can connect with your spirit guide in your next session. I'm jumping in. And then your dad even had some messages about how you're doing in your life and what he wanted you to do. Is there any of that you'd like to share with everybody?
So I remember you asking me to ask him, what was the point of me seeing that past life? And he brought up strength and being courage and
being a leader.
And a leader, yes. And it was kind of funny because I remember after our session, I told you that before we had our session, I had been contemplating what I was going to do with my career. Especially because during COVID had shut me down. So I was really contemplating what was my next step. What was I going to do? And just this crossroads. And it was very interesting because he did bring up yeah, like I wasn't sure, should I decide whether I'm going to stay in it because of how everything was, or what would be my next step? It was the big question. And so when you asked me to ask my dad, and he said that, and he brought up my career, and I was kind of taken back, because at first when he said that, I was like, what do you mean? Like, I didn't quite understand what he was talking about.
Can I jump in? What he said was follow your heart, be
Yes,
a leader,
yes,
lead your heart.
yes. Um, and so when he started to say it, it was like, oh, I know exactly what he's trying to tell me. So, I wanted to, for a very long time in my career, figure out a way to advance as far as like teaching. I work in, not only do I teach, I work in retirement facilities as well.
Mhm.
And so I just knew that the passion that I have for my industry and the love that I have for the clientele that I've always worked on, I needed to figure out a way to get more people on board with what I do, because I'm one person and I can't handle it all. So I was trying to figure this all out. And
Seniors, there's a great need.
yes, a very big need. And so um, I just wasn't sure how I was going to do this. And so I decided to finally go into a course for a medical nail technician and get advanced training. And then my plan was to start teaching. And then I had, so then I had a turn of events after our session. I got asked to work in a school here, and I thought, well, I don't know how long this pandemic's going to be, so I'm going to jump on it. And I thought, well, it'll give me some idea about how I would like to go forward with my own training eventually, you know. And then I found that I fell in love with just teaching, period, and being able to really make a change in my industry at the beginning, at the foundation, the core, which is truly needed, and to be able to do all the things that I had been thinking about for a very long time. And now I'm actually implementing it. And being courageous, because I was quite fearful when I first started. Like I told you before, who wants to listen to me? You
Well,
know?
and so let me jump in. To me, you are about the most modest, service-oriented, calm, gentle soul I have ever met.
Thank you.
And you are so humble, and I mean that in the most loving possible way. So I was just like, wow, talk about an advanced soul. And you choose this humble life when you could, in your last life, you were leading and serving people, but in a much higher, more visible way. But
Yeah.
you're loving and serving people just as much today.
And I think it's interesting, because the more that I read about Elizabeth, the more I find I carry those characteristics today. Um, it is something that I'm very open minded about when I get someone that comes in my classroom. It's been interesting because I've had quite a bit of people come through and tell me, Angie, I've been with you for 20 weeks and you've changed my life. Like the things that you've opened my eyes to, not in professionally, just within me. And I feel like it's a gift I didn't even realize I really had, and I enjoy it a lot, you know, and I'm truly doing what I really love doing. Teaching has just opened so many other doors for me, and it comes so naturally. I don't even have to try. And like I said, I didn't, I was so hesitant to do it all along, and I didn't think anybody would want to listen to me. What would I, what do you know? Everybody's like, you have to be big on social media and all these different platforms. And I'm like,
Only knew.
yeah. And I'm like, no, I'm very quiet and in the corner,
I
you
know.
know, I'm very quiet and in the corner. And I feel like, because I'm able to speak to people one on one, it's changing in a huger way. I still stay in contact with all the ladies that have come through, and they're telling me all these different things, and I'm so proud because I tell my husband now I feel like this is a different legacy that I'm leaving behind, because in my profession, the way that we get to actually interact with people and take care of them, it is really a privilege. It really is.
And so I know your people are coming any minute. That's why we had
Yes.
a little timer set. So I want us to wrap up, but I just appreciate, first of all, you being my first Zoom person. I was like, "Lindsay, I need to practice. Will you be my first Zoom person?" I can't wait to do your Life Between Lives. And then I think we were both stunned.
Yes, very much so. I was.
Past life, but I love how it gave you the courage to then make this next big step where you're being of service in a really special way. So
Thank
any
you.
final words? It's 1:28 our time today, and I know you had to be out by 1:30. Anything else before we wrap up?
I would just encourage anybody who is really on the fence about doing this to do this. I know I tell my clients, I've told students about doing this. I think it is definitely life changing. It makes you see things in a very different light, and I almost feel like it gave me permission to finally do what I truly want to do, what my heart is telling me to do, and being able to have visited with my dad, it gave me closure in some aspects of my life. And so I just think it's a special journey. And I think that you have a gift for giving people the opportunity to do that. And it's something that I feel like everybody should do once.
Angie, and like I said, I can't wait to do your Life Between Lives. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
Oh, my pleasure. I appreciate and love you too. All right. So I'm back here with you. Just incredible. We did get some questions and comments. Interesting one tonight. David's so amazing. And yeah, well, actually, no questions. So I'll look and see. If you have any questions, feel free to post them as we're wrapping up. But I don't know who was more shocked, Angie or me, but it was a pretty incredible session. And, just last week we were answering the question someone asked about, do we ever incarnate not as humans? And her dad was her horse. So there you go. All right. So love to Angie. And then I was just going to wrap up with a couple things. Oh, and I already told you about standing in the grocery store. I had a little note to make sure and mention that. But I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. And we do finally have some retreat news for you, those of you who've been waiting and asking and texting and Facebooking. So our premiere, oh, thank you. Thank you for being with us. Yes, it was an amazing past life. Absolutely. So our premier Life Between Lives retreat, 3-day immortal soul journey in California Central Coast countryside. So just outside of San Luis Obispo, our premier LBL retreat. Leticia is posting the information. I'm stumbling around my words today. Let me slow down. I'm just so excited. Life Between Lives, hypnosis.com/retreat. For those of you who are listening, Life Between Lives, hypnosis.com/retreat. And it's a beautiful venue. You can read more about it on the website. We're just getting the page up. We're going to really be launching it next week, but it is up today and the sales are open. So it is live and you are the first. We wanted to make sure you knew about it first. So before we push it out to the world, since space is really, really limited, but we found a really special place. We wanted you to know about it. There will be a past life experience. There will be a back to the womb and then crossing to the other side and connecting with your council, a little mini LBL as part of it. But most of all is you'll be with a community of people, like-minded souls, where you can talk about these sort of spiritual things. And I think that's what most people want, because regularly people come for sessions and then afterwards they're just brimming with what happened with their session. And I'm the only one that they can talk to about it, or that they feel like they can talk to about it. So we're going to be at some point having more retreats, but this is our first one. We've done day retreats. This is our first overnight retreat. It will be 2 nights, 3 days, and I hope you'll join us. So that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. The incredible sessions keep coming, and we'll just keep sharing them with you. See you next week.
Thank you for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, and follow. And join us next week for another episode of Soul Guide.